Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus, expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I am your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. We had the weekend off of recording, but it is Monday. We are back here right now. We've had, a couple games today. Tigers are still rolling. They beat the Padres tonight. Max Meyer had 14 strikeouts against the Reds in Augustin Ramirez's debut. He went 2 for 3 today. A lot of fun stuff is happening in Major League Baseball, as always. And also, as always, we are here to discuss what's going on.
Yes, indeed. We've kind of reached a little bit of a settling point in the year where things are whoever started out hot, they're starting to cool down a little bit. Whoever started out real cold are starting to heat up a little bit. Braves are finding a little bit of a balancing point. Padres have cooled off a little bit. But their records are still being they're still affected by those starts, but it's looking a little bit more realistic right now. But yeah, looking at what's been going on, I think not long after last recording, there was a big injury news. Justin Steele hit the IL, and then it was announced that he was going to require season-ending elbow surgery, not Tommy John surgery. So I guess that is a very dull silver lining, but he is getting season-ending elbow surgery. Obviously greatly affects the Cubs and their division and postseason chances. What did you think about this unfortunate injury?
Yeah, I mean, I think long-term, big picture for this year, I think the clear takeaway is the Cubs are probably going to need to make a trade for as good a starter as they can at the deadline. They're a team that obviously has the prospect capital to get pretty much any trade done at this point in time. And, they're going to need, they're a team that's obviously anticipating a big October run. One, because they're the best team in this division. I think that's pretty clearly what they've been showing this year, right? They're 14-10 in first place in the NL Central. They've had basically the best offense in the league by most metrics. And at the same time, I don't really know if they have an ace. Justin Steele was probably the closest thing to that, and he's down now. I don't really know if Shota Imanaga is an ace. He has a chance to prove it to us. But either way, I think pretty clearly this team can't be going into a playoff series with Imanaga, Matthew Boyd, Colin Ray, Ben Brown, Jameson Taillon making up its rotation, especially if this is the only year you're going to have Kyle Tucker, which at this point it seems very likely, at least that he won't be extended. You're going to need to put forward the best effort you can, and they have the resources available to do that. And yeah, the Steele injury sucks, but you're going to have to find a way to replace him.
Right, for sure. And they're in a situation where they do have prospect capital to give out. They have it looks like on Fangraphs a top 10 farm system in baseball. Not sure where they line up in terms of MLB pipeline and in Baseball America, but I'm sure it's relatively high. And also, if not, they probably don't want to get rid of any major league talent, but they do have some young guys with a lot of control as well. But yeah, if any listeners are unaware of what Justin Steele has meant to the Cubs rotation, he's been one of the better pitchers in baseball in a somewhat under the radar way for reasons because probably in 2023 he was newer onto the scene, and then 2024 missed some time, so he was obviously not in any Cy Young contention or anything, but was productive in both 2023 and 2024. Going back to 2023, out of I'm trying to see here, out of 61 pitchers to throw 300 plus innings since 2023, Justin Steele ranks 5th in ERA and 7th in FIP. So yeah, he's been one of the better pitchers in all of baseball since 2023, and now the Cubs do not have him, unfortunately. And yeah, I think in my opinion, I think this is a great thing for the rest of the NL Central, because like looking at that division, it's hard to imagine more than one playoff team coming out of it. So anytime the odds are significantly sway your way in terms of the division, that's a really, really good sign because it doesn't really seem like there's any other option.
I would say probably if you're just a fan of any team, whether it be the Cubs or anyone else, start paying attention to how the Cubs pitching responds to this devastating injury, because the pitching has already been struggling relative to the rest of the league this year. Overall, both rotation and bullpen wise, they rank 19th in ERA. They rank 21st in FIP, and a large part of that is the bullpen. The starting rotation has been better, but Justin Steele certainly wasn't lights out when he was on the mound anyway. But you need, this team needs pitching, both starting and bullpen. I'm really curious to see how they respond to an injury for one of their most talented pitchers.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It it's certainly a blow. Also you kind of have to consider like how is the lineup going to respond, because now they almost have more responsibility to score more runs. So that is something to consider. And yeah, it certainly makes the NL Central race look a lot more interesting. I know the Brewers are two-time defending champions, but the Cubs were pretty much the consensus favorite. They still probably are. I know on Fangraphs they have a over a 50% chance to win the division, according to them. But having your number one gone for the year, that certainly shifts things up.
Mhm.
But yeah, anything more on the Justin Steele injury?
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs are going to need to rely on, Carson Kelly to maintain his 1600 OPS or whatever it is if they want to stay afloat during these times, right?
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful trade acquisition by the Diamondbacks back in
19.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the main.
He was
um,
supposed to be like the replacement for Yadier Molina.
right,
He was
right.
supposed to be like the guy that they passed the torch to, and then they're like, oh, Paul Goldschmidt, never mind.
Yeah,
Which, hey,
exactly.
fair decision.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good decision on their part for sure.
Pedro
Uh,
Pajes seems to be hitting well this year.
nice, nice.
Who do I mean, I'm talking trade. To me, it feels like this has to be the clear, I would say, favorite at this point for Sandy Alcantara. I would even put them above the Orioles, both in, willingness to actually make that kind of move, but also like at this point, I would go as far as to say the Cubs have a deeper farm system than the Orioles. I know that uh, we've been, hyping up the Orioles system for however long now. Most of their guys have made it to the big leagues at this point, and all the guys that are still down there, I just don't see them trading for Alcantara, whether it be Samuel Basallo, whether it be Kobe Mayo, kind of the two main guys that are still down there. I just don't really see it happening with any of those guys unless they want to part with some of their, major league caliber talent in the Heston Kjerstads of the world. I guess that's really the only person that falls into that category for me from that team.
Right, right. And also you look at just kind of a logistical fit.
He
Sandy
fits.
Alcantara.
Sandy fits the mold of what the Cubs like for sure.
Yeah, and also, considering a ground ball pitcher with Dansby Swanson and
Nico
Nico
Horner.
Horner behind you, who are going to be eating up most of the ground balls, because that's what happens with shortstops and second basemen is they get the most balls hit to them in the infield. That's really, really good. It's more advantageous to have someone like Sandy Alcantara as opposed to like Christian Javier, who's going to allow the ball in the air way more. It's going to benefit the Cubs a lot more because the average against ground balls with Sandy Alcantara is probably going to be lower with the Cubs than your average team. So it would make sense, and it would really work well for the Cubs considering they have two Gold Glove quality guys in the middle of their infield.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I mean, they have a pretty deep farm system. They have How many top 100 guys do they have according to Baseball America? Let me find out.
Yeah, I know MLB Pipeline had
Four.
them. Yeah, MLB Pipeline had them
Sorry, five.
number 8 in the farm system rankings. And yeah, they do have some high profile guys if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And yeah, some just organizational depth as well. Trying to see where this
But
team.
then again, I still don't even really fully buy that the Marlins are trading Sandy Alcantara, as crazy as that sounds at this point. I think it's probably likely, but I definitely wouldn't put a guarantee on it the way it would have with pretty much any other player that the franchise has had. I think you get traded eventually, but maybe not this year.
Right. And yeah, looking at the teams with the most outfield or infield outs above average since 2023, Cubs ranked number 4 in that department.
Yep.
So they're a top 5
And
infield
the guys
defense.
they've had since 2013 are still there now. Yeah, you mentioned Swanson, Horner.
Right, exactly. And probably, they've probably upgraded at the other positions defensively as well. Christopher Morel was not helping them out at third base last year,
Yeah, right.
in terms of outs above average. I'm sure Matt Shaw is a little bit better.
I mean, he's young.
He's young, he's developing.
He does have -3 outs above average, but
Okay,
you
that's not a
you
great
can
pace.
you can give him the benefit of the doubt of having played in what, like 20 games.
Right, true.
You couldn't really do that with Morel last year.
Yeah, I've seen major league batted balls going at you. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, the Cubs definitely they're gonna have to be targeting some players because yeah, as the narrative has been, it's kind of make or break for them right now. It seemed like that last year as well. So it's even more so this year, especially with the pressure of Kyle Tucker being there only this year as we know it right now. Um, but yeah, anything more before you wanted to get into some of the drama that has been surfacing the interweb?
Yeah, there was major drama in baseball. Yeah, there was the tweet heard around the Easter dinner table. It wasn't really
Yeah,
dinner. It wasn't really dinner time when it happened. The tweet heard around the egg hunt.
yeah,
That was quickly deleted. Yeah, so we'll set the scene for our Saturday night. The Braves are playing the Twins in Atlanta. It's late in the game. I believe the Braves have just tied the game on a Michael Harris homer. Immediately afterwards, Jared Kelenic comes up, hits a ball that admittedly I thought was gone off the bat. It looked like it was going out, over that chop house there in right field. It hits off the top of that large wall. Kelenic quickly realizes it's not out and starts hustling to second base because he had been jogging previously and is out on the throwback in, costing himself a double because he didn't hustle out of the box. Ronald Acuna Jr. was benched for essentially this same thing. Granted, it was all the way back in 2019, but regardless, same manager, same situation. And Brian Snitker said, like, we don't accept that kind of that lack of hustle on the field. It's he's a young player and it's a lesson to learn. Fair. However, he didn't do the same thing with Kelenic. In fact, when he was asked about it by reporters, I think his quote was something like, he was asked, like, what did you say to Kelenic? And he said something like, way to get a good piece on it. What was I supposed to say? Or something like that. Very clearly not the same thing. Acuna took to Twitter, which, by the way, before this, he had not tweeted since early February, which I think is kind of worth noting because, clearly it's not like he's tweeting every day. Like it was a special occasion for him to hit the send button on a tweet that said, if this were me, if I did that, then I would have been taken out of the game.
yeah, right, exactly. Um, yeah, it certainly was worth noting this whole interaction. Yeah, I do wonder kind of what I do kind of wonder what's maybe being discussed in the clubhouse. I'm sure, you know, by the time we're talking about this next week, this is kind of by the wayside.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and talking about, I guess, the parallel of the two situations, it's very possible that, Brian Snitker thinks about that situation a lot differently 6 years later. We're kind of in the era, not that we weren't in 2019, but we're more in the era of, I guess, embracing um, you know, players expressing themselves. And if you're, trotting down and celebrating the home run, I guess even if it doesn't happen, I
Mhm.
guess it's more accepted or more tolerated now. So
Is
maybe
it
it's
like
just kind of how
I guess
that's
this is an example, but like, is it more accepted if it results in you being out at second base? It's
well,
one thing, like if
the
Kellenic got to second, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It didn't make any difference. He was out at second because he he didn't get out of the box.
right. I think it's more meant to say that it's not as um demonized, like the fact that that happened. It's just like, oh, it might just, whoever might be seeing that as a manager might be like, oh, well, that's silly. Let's just hope that we don't have to see that, happen two more times this season. It's like the player
Yeah,
knew what
I
he did.
guess.
Whereas maybe 6 years ago, it would be like, okay, we have to make an example here. But um, that's just kind of a hypothetical there. I
It
don't
is
really
very, I
know.
mean, I don't know. Are you and I in agreement that this is probably a worse look for Brian Snitker than anyone else in this situation?
Um,
Because it's not a
yeah,
great look for really anybody, whether it be Kelnick, whether it be Snitker, whether it be Acuna. Um,
yeah, it is interesting. Obviously the dynamics of it. It's like, we're talking about um a white American player as opposed to, a guy from Venezuela who is obviously more animated than
mhm.
Kelnick. So obviously
This was in
the
too. He was like 22 years old, not even. He was like
right.
21.
So like the difference of like how people could view the situation, um, and how Kelnick and Acuna were viewed very differently, is that difference is very clearly stated. So I see why that is a discussion point.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to think that whatever's being discussed, it's going to be all in house, and I'm not sure that we're going to get much out of this
No,
in the
we're
public
definitely
eye.
not. Brian Snitker was asked about it, I believe, after the game on Sunday, or maybe it was before the game. And he just said, like, yeah, I heard about it. I haven't talked to him or anything. I don't know if Acuna is with the team right now, if he's rehabbing somewhere else, if he's in Venezuela or whatever. I'm not sure exactly where he's at. I mean, I've been watching decent amount of Braves games. I don't think I've ever seen him in the dugout. I feel like I would have if he was there. So I guess there is that aspect of it. To me, like the fact that he went public with this on Twitter, I think pretty clearly shows that he is unhappy with the double standard here. Like that's I mean, look, I don't know if he brought it to the team first or not. I'm sure he probably did it in some capacity. I don't know. Like to me, like if again, he hadn't tweeted since early February. Like clearly he had to be feeling some type of way if he was willing to just put it out there publicly like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
and
he's been in the league long enough to understand how that stuff's going to be received by the media.
right. And I'm sure with him particularly, like, with him, he, when that situation happens and you're 21 or 22 years old, it kind of carries with you, and I'm sure that he's, how he's approached base running, or like when he hits a ball far, has changed a little bit since then, or at least he always has it in the back of his mind. So now that he sees a teammate do make the same mistake and not get the same treatment, I'm sure that that does kind of induce some sort of natural reaction that comes out of
Not just
him.
different treatment, but like Snicker being saying like essentially being like, oh, there's a problem. I didn't know there was a problem because that's the way that it sounded to me in that quote.
Right, right. Yeah, it seemed like he was trying to brush it off and be like, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's the end of the day, you got to be consistent with it. Like I don't think anyone's questioning why a manager would bench a guy, even if it's your best player in that situation. At the end of the day, it's the manager's decision to make. And yes, it was 6 years apart, but 6 years ago, it was the best player on your team, and now it's a guy that probably won't be in the lineup once Acuna comes back. There could be that different. There could be that aspect of it too, where it's like we're trying to reshape our best player, a guy that we know is going to be here for the future, versus it's Kelenic, man. He's going to be off the team. Who cares?
Right, true. It is interesting. I'm sure when Snitker was asked that question, his mind didn't immediately go back to like
Yeah, to that
Acuna,
moment.
and I don't think I would imagine that the media didn't. I think it would have been specified otherwise. I imagine the media didn't
It was
preface
probably
it by
dug back up
saying,
after the quote.
yeah, wait, what was that?
The Acuna part of it was probably dug back up after he tweeted it, where it's like, oh yeah, Acuna literally did get benched. Like
Yeah,
he did factually point out when I did this, or if I did this, I would have been taken out, because that is literally, he has precedent to go off of there. He's not making that up.
yeah, exactly. So I don't think whoever was asking him the question was prefacing it by being like, well, 6 years ago, you kind of punished Acuna, who made the same mistake. Why did this not happen? I think it was singularly focused on that moment and not providing context to any other moment that happened in Braves history, or while the Braves were under Snicker's tenure, or leadership. So I'm sure it didn't come to mind, but maybe he's had some sort of moment of reflection since then. But yeah, it's all speculation at this point.
It is. And yeah, it will probably blow over. Um, I mean, nothing was ever going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if there was a team or two calling the Braves being like, hey, your guy's clearly unhappy. What do you want to get him off, get him out of Atlanta?
Yeah, right,
Which is, I tweeted
exactly.
about it and got a bunch of very angry responses from Braves fans. I never said I thought Acuna was going to be traded, because I don't. I don't think that. I don't think he will. I don't think he should. I think if anyone calls, the Braves would immediately tell them to go away. But like you can't, like, as a GM, I think it's borderline malpractice to see the best player on a team with maybe the most player friendly contract in the entire sport publicly tweeting how upset he is at a decision made by his manager, uh, and not pick up the phone.
Yeah, right, exactly. You got a 40-70 guy who is making 17 million a year right now, as someone who's, not in pre-arb.
No.
Um, so
Who's got two club options for what, like 17 million for the next, for like 2027, 28, I think it is.
I think so, yeah.
Like he's under control, team control, for 4 more years. I know that it's technically two, it's four, because there's no way, a lot would have to happen for even one of those two options to not get picked up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, did you have any more thoughts in this situation?
I really didn't. Chris, what are I don't know, what are some other takeaways you had from this week? Anything that caught your eye in any of the baseball that you watched?
Anything that caught my eye? That's a good
Anything.
question. Um, I mean, there have been some crazy pitcher performances lately. I feel like
Hmm.
Zach Wheeler struck out 13. He struck out half the batters he faced. Um, Yamamoto sub 1 ERA right
Yeah,
now.
how about that? That's your guy, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
doing it.
I've been I've felt pretty vindicated so far. He's at a sub 1 ERA through 5 starts, so that's good. And it
Not
doesn't,
only
yeah,
that,
it
but he also
doesn't
has a
complete.
63% ground ball rate or something like that.
Oh yeah, that is pretty wild.
He's
Makes a little bit
doing
of makes a
he's
little bit of
doing the thing.
sense.
Yes, literally 63.5% ground ball rate and also a 35% strikeout rate.
Yeah, that's
That's
insane.
sick.
And yeah, we're
A
and
minus 19 average launch angle on his splitter, also with a 51.4% whiff rate.
right, right.
That's, dude, that's so cool. I love any pitch that has more strikeouts against it than batted balls.
Yeah. It
And that's what you got out of out of Yamamoto's splitter. You got 20 strikeouts and 19 batted balls against.
right, right.
A
Um
pulled air percent of 1.6.
yeah, yeah, but I haven't really, not a whole lot of takeaways just yet. Like I said, like I think teams who got off to uncharacteristic starts are starting to kind of find their form in positive or negative ways. Like yeah, the Padres, yeah, Padres started like 12-3 or something like that. Now they're, 16-7, or I know they just lost to the Tigers, so like 16-7, 16-8 or something like that. Braves are nearing 500 right now. Yeah,
You
did you
know,
anything that popped out?
how like for many years I used to always get fooled by the Angels. I used to always be way too optimistic on them, and they would just completely fall flat on their face every time.
Right.
That's the Twins now. Like I just can't figure out the Minnesota Twins. Every year I'm like, no, this team's good. You don't understand. Like they're gonna stay. I mean, health hasn't really even been an issue at this point, but like, it's like, no, you don't understand. This time they are actually gonna stay healthy. And it's like, no, they're 7-15 actually.
Right, yeah. And they started like this last year too, and then they got off to a really they
Yeah,
they
and then the rally sausage
they
became a
won like
thing.
they won like 12 in a row at some point. And it's like, oh, they're
Mhm.
back. They're clearly gonna easily win
Yeah,
the
okay. They're just gonna
division.
run away with this division. Yeah, and then they went what like 9-22 or something like that in September.
Um, yeah, yeah,
I forget what the record was.
it was
They're
like
20 they're 26th in weighted runs created plus this year. Um, really nobody has hit on this team with consistent playing time except for Matt Wallner, who is currently on the injured list. The only hitters with at least 60 plate appearances with a weighted runs created plus over 100 are Matt Wallner, who's on the IL, Harrison Bader, who we all expected would be the big performer on the Twins, and then Byron Buxton, the one guy that's sort of performing up to expectations, and even then, not really. He's a 114 weighted runs created plus bat.
and it hasn't been until recently. Like I think
Yeah, he started out slow.
yeah, yesterday he went 3 for 4 with a triple and a home run or something like that. So he was probably a below average hitter before that. Um,
He probably
yeah, no,
was.
it's I'm sure it's definitely frustrating for them. Yeah, it's just not putting it together right now, strangely enough.
No, they're not doing it. The rotation hasn't been great either. They're 21st in rotation F4, tied for 20th, I guess. They have a 4.30 ERA as a rotation. Or sorry, they have a 4.30. Yeah, tied for 19th. Yeah, it's not going well for Minnesota. Although my player to watch, David Festa, has had a couple nice outings.
Yeah, he's looked pretty good. I
He has.
remember I think I watched him against the Mets and his stuff looked pretty
Yeah,
nice.
no, it's been moving. I watched some of that start as well.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess luckily for us, we are starting to get a little bit of vindication on the Royals. Um,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've been
yeah,
waiting for this. Great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
yeah,
I'm sure now that we're talking about it, they're gonna just find it again. But yeah, they are 9-14. They lost 3 out of 4 in Detroit this weekend.
yeah. No, things are starting to look normal again. Things are looking
Mhm.
like they were supposed to look all along last year. But
One thing that I've been also just very excited about, like I've never been a huge draft guy, obviously. But I was last year for several different reasons, largely because I got to watch a lot of the top prospects play in the Cape League the year before they got drafted. And it's been pretty cool seeing the guys, from early in the draft last year that are killing it. Obviously, most notably Travis Bazzana. He has a 143 weighted runs created plus in 13 AA games. He just went 4 for 5 the other day, or at least like recently. Um, like that's been, very cool. Jack Caglione I think he hit a ball 120 at some point this year.
whoa,
Yeah. Yeah, he's been pretty cool. The guy that and by the way, he used to be a pitcher.
yeah,
Um, Nick Kurtz got called up by the A's today. I think we were kind of waiting on that one for a while because they suspiciously started playing Brent Rooker in the outfield, and you can't take Tyler Soderstrom out of that lineup right now. So
Mhm.
yeah, by default, had to be that. In AAA, he was slashing 321, 385 for a 655. Slash line a 142 weighted runs created plus.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was awesome. JJ Weatherhold from the Cardinals a 167 weighted runs created plus, and 53 AA plate appearances, only an 11.3% strikeout rate. He's been awesome as per usual. Also Chase Burns. I'm talking about all the major names in last year's draft, of course. Chase Burns, 15.43 strikeouts per nine in high A this year. 309 ERA, 177 xFIP.
Wow.
Yeah.
177 xFIP.
Yeah, which means translation, he's given up a lot of home runs.
Right.
Which, yeah, I mean 1.54 home runs per nine in 11.2 innings pitched, 55% ground ball rate, a 40% home run to fly ball ratio.
Yeah, it's strange for such a difficult sport, how quicker guys are adjusting to the professional baseball, it seems these days. It seems like
I've been saying this, and I do feel more and more vindicated by this take every year, but I think the gap between like the let's just say the power four, slash power five, which the power five doesn't exist anymore, but the power 4 to 5, the power 4.5 conferences and the lower levels of the minor leagues, that gap in talent is shrinking, if not gone.
yeah.
Because all of the best guys in college, you see them just rip through the minors. Like, I mean, we're talking about, I mean, how many guys from the 2023 and 24 draft class are already in the majors, right? Like one of them is already the best pitcher in the league. One of them got, the 15th pick in 2024 made his team's opening day roster, and has, held his own. I mean, Cam Smith isn't, he's not lighting the world on fire, but he's not lost. He's a 732 OPS. Matt Shaw, he did struggle, but like regardless, that's still a 2023 first round pick that was on an opening day roster. Like you didn't always see that kind of quick trip through the minors like you saw there. Wyatt Langford, like people forget, he was literally drafted this time 2 years ago. He was playing at Florida.
Yeah, right. Like you look at his college numbers and his minor league numbers, and it's not different.
No.
Not different at
Well,
all.
hold on. What was the stat that I had this week? Wyatt Langford is like one of the best minor league hitters of all time.
Yeah, because he was in a rehab assignment and he
homered.
He like absolutely killed it.
Yeah, his rehab assignment I think was like which that was I think all they needed to see that clearly he was ready. Since 2006, if this will load. Come on. Yeah, the stat I had the other day, I just want to see how if it's updated or not, because it's crazy. Wyatt Langford, I think, had like the second highest OPS of any minor leaguer with at least 200 plate appearances since 2006. And that was before he homered in his first rehab assignment game.
Wait, sorry. What was that?
It was that Wyatt Langford, since 2006, I think had like the second highest OPS of any hitter that had at least 200 minor league plate appearances since 2006.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something. It was something crazy like that.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, okay. He has an 1126 minor league OPS in 219 plate appearances. Only Emil Morales, a 17-year-old who played for the Dodgers in 2024 in the Dominican Summer League, who put up a 186 weighted runs created plus in 201 plate appearances, has more.
Yeah.
Out of 14,537 minor leaguers with at least 200 minor league plate appearances since 2006, Wyatt Langford was number 2 in OPS, number 2 in weighted runs created plus, behind this guy, Juan Soto. I think you may have heard of him before.
Yeah,
he was a Nationals prospect.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
He got traded to the Padres for James Wood.
Yeah, and he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, so like imagine how good Juan Soto is. He's getting traded for James Wood.
Yeah, and I've heard he's pretty young too. Imagine what that free agent contract could look like if everything goes right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, especially these days, like Vladdy Jr. just got 500 million. So
Yeah,
he
that's
he
gonna
could
set.
probably get close to that.
You could probably get. You might even. I mean, if all goes right, you could be talking about a six.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like he's what 26 going into free agency.
Yeah. Yeah,
Who knows?
absolutely.
Anyway, a couple other a couple other takeaways. Speaking of the Rangers, this is. I mean this in the most respectful way possible. What are the Rangers doing with their score bug on their broadcast? They have, I don't know if you've seen this, Chris, but they have on the bottom left-hand side of the Rangers network broadcast, because they're independently owned, I believe. They have like, the team logos, the score, the men on base, the outs, uh, all the essentials. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, in a separate score bug, they have the pitcher and the pitches thrown, and then the hitter and his line for the night. I can't have two different score bugs. I gotta have everything on one side of the screen. Like
Yeah, no.
either like I don't even love Bally's, but at least Bally keeps all the information on one side of the screen, and then like there's a ticker on the right side. Like I can't be having all the information on two different sides of the screen like that.
Right, right. Yeah, it certainly complicates things, especially when it's all about the same thing.
Yeah.
With yeah, I kind of like Nesson's score bug. Like kind of has everything you need, has the pitch count, has who's batting, where in the order they are.
And for me, it's all about like give me as much as possible, and don't make it tiny, but make it like so it takes up as little of the screen as possible. Like yeah, the Nesson one is good. I like what is that? I like the SNY one. It's just a rectangle, perfectly shaped, got everything,
Yeah, that's true.
gets it what you
Um
need.
yeah.
And then also something that made me very sad. I don't know if you've seen this, but on Quick Pitch, they got rid of the little sidebar which shows you what games are coming up in the recaps.
Oh yeah, no, that was always fun. And
That was an essential part of the broadcast for me.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, oh, the Red Sox are up after, Twins Rays. That's gonna be
Yeah,
I can't wait to see what happens, even though I already watched.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Even though I saw the entire game,
yeah.
but I want to see how it gets presented.
Yeah,
I
I
want to
want to
see
see
what parts of
what
the game they show.
Heidi Watney has to say about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, those are my two broadcast gripes to get out of the way.
it's the yeah, it's your bone to pick
Yeah.
with score bugs. I mean, a bad score bug, we're talking a 162 game season. A bad score bug can really mess things up for you.
Yeah.
We're dedicating hundreds of hours to watching these games, and especially if you're a Rangers fan and watching every game, that can be brutal. I mean, like I know as a
The score bug itself doesn't look bad. It's just that they divided it on two different sides of the screen.
yeah, 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 but like talking about the grind of watching a season, I know it gets talked about playing a season, but um, at least when I lived locally, if the Red Sox had a commercial running that was just horrendous and you're watching that every single day, it it is brutal. It is not something you want to watch. And
I
there was a
remember
lot of that.
during spring training, I think it was in 2024. I guess MLB just like hadn't gotten ad deals done or something, because they were literally only showing the baseball Zen commercials, and literally only that. And it's like after two innings of only hearing like and it wasn't like plays or it wasn't crowds, it was like field work getting done. It's like if that's all it is for commercial breaks, like I'm gonna go insane before opening day if it's
Honestly,
3 straight minutes of that.
honestly, like, we're for MLB TV, you're a paying customer. I don't want to see advertisements.
Yeah.
Just show the warm up of the next inning.
What are your thoughts on the like the zodiac sign commercials on MLB TV?
I don't know. I usually have my volume turned down so I don't actually hear what's going on, but it's like, oh, Jose Ramirez, he's getting a description. It's like, oh, it's good to see Jose Ramirez getting attention. Look at that.
That's your takeaway. It's like, well, even if they're talking
Mhm.
about Jose Ramirez's zodiac sign and what it means. Well,
Yeah,
they're talking about Jose Ramirez.
it's good to see him getting promoted.
Yeah.
I guess that's my main takeaway from it.
I don't know. I don't know like zodiac sign Jose Ramirez is. But it's like, oh, they're giving attention for being born in the middle of September. Cool.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't know what sign that is. Don't yell at me, please.
I only know mine, and whatever traits are presented in that one, I selectively
You
look at the ones
selectively go away from.
I selectively um like look at the ones that apply to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's crazy. That's so me. I'm such a Scorpio.
True.
Um, but yeah, no, it's if you're into it, you're into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I'm
that's
not I'm not here to uh to crap on people that are into that stuff. That's just it took me off guard to see that they incorporated it so deeply into the MLB TV commercials last year.
right, right. That's true. Um, yeah, but yeah, did we want to get into players to highlight?
Let's do it. Yeah, enough of this. Enough of the zodiac sign talk.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back into it next episode.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, we will move on to players highlights, and we will start with the lows. We end with the highs. Talking about our Monday, April 21st, 2025 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats, he's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting
slightly alarming.
Yeah, so for my slightly alarming, I'm going with a guy that I think was kind of hyped up for a couple of years as like the next piece of the future in Houston at a time where they desperately needed future pieces. But Yainer Diaz has had a very rough start to the season. In 66 plate appearances so far, he is slashing 143, 182, 222 for a 404 OPS. His OPS is literally like an error. Like it doesn't compute. It's an error code 404, if you know what I mean. He also has a 15 weighted runs created plus and minus 0.7 fWAR in just 66 plate appearances. Among the 170 qualifying position players so far this season, Yainer Diaz ranks fourth lowest in batting average. He is the lowest in OBP at 182, sixth lowest in slugging, second lowest in OPS, tied for the lowest with 15 weighted runs created plus, and among all players is second worst in fWAR at minus 0.7. Now, it's pretty clear to see what's going on here. Diaz has a 42.3% chase rate this season. And on its own, you'd be like, whoa, 42.3%. That's crazy. That must be some kind of like, small sample size thing that'll go down. No, that's actually his lowest chase rate of his career, including full seasons that he's played in. This is actually the lowest his chase rate has ever been. So that's nothing new, but the way that pitchers are approaching him is very different. 41.2% of all pitches that have been thrown to Yainer Diaz this year have been out of the strike zone, have been in the strike zone. Only 41%, which is a 5-point decrease from last year. And like I said, the lowest of the 249 hitters to see at least 200 pitches. 24.9% of all pitches thrown to Yainer Diaz this year have been pitches out of the zone that he has swung at, whether he made contact or not. It's a pitch out of the zone that he was chasing. And essentially what's happening here is pitchers are saying, hey, this guy chases 40% of the time. If we throw him whatever out of the zone, he'll probably swing at it. And it's working. He's doing that. Unsurprisingly, his strikeout rate is up 5% this year compared to last year. That kind of goes without saying when you're swinging it essentially everything out of the zone, which is not great. But what is a bit surprising is the line drive rate for him this year is down from 25.5% last year to just 14.6% this year. That minus 10.9% decrease is the 10th steepest among the 184 qualifiers between each of the last 2 years. Additionally, his fly ball rate has been upped from 18.7% to 35.4%, which is normally something I'd love, but he's not really getting much behind it. His barrel rate on fly balls has gone from 25.3% to 17.6%. So Yainer Diaz, above all else, he's kind of approaching each at-bat the same way, but it's just pitchers have realized how to pitch to him a lot more clearly, and they're taking advantage of that. He hasn't really made much adjustments in terms of not chasing this year. I mean, I guess he kind of has if 42.3% is the lowest chase rate he's ever had, but regardless, he's not hitting the ball hard. He's chasing far too much as he usually does, but this time it's actually catching up to him, and he is getting a slightly alarming.
Yainer Diaz.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, kind of a Javi Baez effect. You see the way pitchers have decided to pitch Javi Baez. They throw a lot of pitches in that waste attack zone, and a lot of times they get rewarded with a swing and miss. And yeah, my number 7 catcher in baseball heading into 2025.
Yeah.
So not the best there. My slightly alarming is my number 2 left fielder in baseball for 2025, and that is Riley Green, who started out pretty well, but has really, really cooled off and been arguably the worst hitter in baseball in his last 12 games, at least 12 games heading into Monday. In his last 12 games heading into Monday, he was hitting 128 with a 324 OPS. Out of 177 qualifiers in that span heading into Monday, he ranked 5th lowest in average, 7th lowest in on-base percentage, and he had the lowest slugging and OPS in all of baseball. Also, out of 172 hitters to see 150 plus pitches in that span heading into Monday, he had the 2nd lowest expected batting average, 2nd lowest expected WOBA, and lowest expected slugging. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that he is just not making contact. His strikeout rate in the span was 37%, which was 8th highest out of 177 qualifiers in this span. His average exit velocity was only 87 miles per hour, but most importantly, just not getting the hard fly balls that do reward you with positive offensive results. He has no extra base hits and no barrels in this 12-game span, which he kind of makes his name off of those types of batted balls is the barrels and which result in the extra base hits. And looking at specific pitches in this span, he is 0 for 7 on sliders with a 63% whiff rate. So not seeing the sliders very well, whiffing at them almost 2/3 of the time. But yeah, Riley Green striking out a lot and not getting any barrels, and that's resulted in him having the lowest OPS since April 7 among qualifiers in baseball. Riley Green.
Slightly alarming.
So yeah, now we will move from the lows to the highs, talking our talking players or subjects that have been outperforming expectations with our April 21st, 2025 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
And he is getting a...
How about that?
Yes, so for my How About That today, this is a long one, so bear with me because there's a lot of information that I thought was quite interesting. It's more the geeky, nerdy side of things, which, what isn't, but comparable to the rest, this one very much is. Talking about the guy that is tied for 2nd among all pitchers in F4, talking about Chris Bassett from the Toronto Blue Jays, who has had a really terrific start to the year. A guy that obviously doesn't blow you away with velocity, but he's made it work in a lot of other ways. Yeah, like I said, his 1.2 F4 this year ranks 2nd among all pitchers, or tied for 2nd among all pitchers in 2025. And among these 79 qualifying starters, he also ranks 7th in K rate at 33.3%, 6th in K rate minus walk rate at 28%, 1st in FIP with a 102, 2nd in ERA with a 0.77, and he has not given up a home run in, I believe, either 4 or 5 starts. I think it's 4 at this point, which is awesome. His average exit velocity on fly balls has gone from 90.5 miles per hour in 2024 to just 87.6 miles per hour in 2025, again, relevant to the fact that he hasn't given up a home run all year. On that same point, his barrel rate on fly balls has gone from 19.8% last year to just 14.3% this year. And his pull rate against on fly balls has gone from 27% last year to just 7.1% this year. So no one's really bailing the ball up against Chris Bassett, and you're seeing it in the greater results. Much like last year, Chris Bassitt is utilizing his sinker as his top weapon. And even that has undergone some refining. The whiff rate on his sinker has gone from 12.8% last year to 19.4% this year. And you can credit that to a pretty dramatic increase in drop that we've seen in his sinker. The downward movement on his primary pitch has gone from 23.9 inches on average last year to 27 inches this year. He's gained three inches in drop on his sinker, which is massive. Additionally, its horizontal movement has gone from 16.5 inches to 17.4 inches. So, Chris Bassitt on his top weapon has gained an inch of arm side movement and 3 inches of drop, which is quite significant. So far this year, he has thrown 90 sinkers with 25 plus inches of drop and 15 plus inches of arm side movement. And that is the 4th highest in the majors. Opponents are hitting 182 and slugging 212 against that sinker. His second most used pitch is his cutter, a pitch where Bassitt traded 2 miles per hour from last year for 2 additional inches of downward movement. His rate of cutters having at least 25 inches of downward movement has gone from 4.3% last year to 75% this year. So that's getting a lot more movement as well. Opponents are hitting and slugging 063 against Bassitt's cutter. Again, 063 batting average, no extra base hits. His third most commonly used pitch is his curveball. And by the way, Chris Bassitt throws a lot of pitches. These are the only 3 that I'm talking about, but he throws like 7 of them. His curveball averages 68.8% inches of downward movement, which is the 2nd highest among the 164 qualifiers. This year, Bassitt has thrown 40 curveballs exactly with at least 60 inches of downward movement and 15 inches of glove side movement. No other pitcher in the majors has thrown more than 23 such pitches, and he is at 40. Opponents are hitting and slugging 118 against Bassitt's curveball. So each of his last 3 pitches have looked really good in terms of the movement, the pitch shape. They've been excellent. There's been a lot of refining done there. And, additionally, more strikeouts because of that, more weak contact and overall better results. And that's how Chris Bassitt has become a top pitcher in the league so far this year.
Yeah, Chris Bassitt.
How about that?
Always cool to see a player just kind of evolve even in their mid-30s and just really take shape. And yeah, it seems to be happening with Chris Bassitt so far this year. How about that? And I don't want to be this way, but this year it's just happening, and players just keep popping up. But it's going to be my 3rd victory lap in a row, because
you're not wrong.
And listen, this is a long time coming for me. I've had a long list of flops. Think back to 2021. I had 8 flops that year, and my best hit was a guy who played 60 games, and this was 2021, by the way, not 2020.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Aranda is just
no, you're so right though. That's so real.
He's absolutely killing it. It's been, I've highlighted Ben Rice and Tyler.
Also, this is a former player to watch of mine too. So it's a great victory lap for you, but in
the long run, it does.
I'm in solidarity with you on this one for sure.
Yeah, but yeah. So I've highlighted Ben Rice. I've highlighted Tyler Soderstrom, who have both been lighting up the league so far. And I have to highlight Jonathan Aranda because he's been doing the same. In 73 plate appearances this year, he is hitting 355 with an 1116 OPS. Out of 170 qualifiers this year heading into Monday, his average ranks 5th, and on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS all rank 4th. Out of 179 hitters to see 250 plus pitches this year heading into Monday, Aranda's expected batting average ranks 6th, expected slugging ranks 4th, and expected WOBA ranks 4th. Part of this has to do with him making more contact and getting on base more via the walk. From 2024 to 2025, his strikeout rate has gone from 22% to 16%, and walk rate has gone from 8% to 12%. His average exit velocity has also gone from 91.9 miles per hour to 95.1 miles per hour. He's so far averaging a hard hit ball this year. and that average exit velocity is in the 96th percentile in baseball this year. Also, his sweet spot rate has gone from 34% to 45%, and his sweet spot rate is in the 94th percentile. Sweet spot is a batted ball between 8 and 32 degrees roughly, and hitters usually hit around 600 and slug around 1100 in that range. And Jonathan Aranda is 94th percentile at putting it in that range. Also, his barrel rate has gone from an already impressive 17% to 20% in 2025, and his barrel rate is in the 94th percentile in baseball. Also, out of 179 hitters to see 250 plus pitches heading into Monday, his barrel rate per plate appearance ranked 8th. And then to go along with him putting the ball in the air hard, he is also pulling the ball very well. 41% of his fly balls have been pulled, and 14% of his batted balls have been pulled fly balls. And out of 134 hitters to hit 50 plus batted balls heading into Monday, that rate ranked 17th, which is, I think, top 15% roughly, top 15%, top 20% in terms of rated batted balls being pulled fly balls. And yeah, he's being rewarded, in doing all these things, he's rewarded with an 1116 OPS, ranked 4th in all of baseball. So yeah, just kind of a new weapon that's emerged in that Tampa Bay lineup. And Jonathan Aranda is getting a.
How about that?
Very nice.
Yeah, full circle for both of us here, as we've both highlighted him as a how about that.
I was 2 years early.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens with our guys. But yeah, anything more before we wanted to wrap up here?
I think that is all for this week.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out the guest interviews. I know Matt Brash is probably going to return relatively soon, so be sure to prepare for his return with our interview with him, which was pretty insightful. Talked about his career so far, his journey to being a reliever as opposed to a starter, and lots of other cool stuff. We talked with him for about an hour back in I think December, and it's a pretty evergreen conversation, so feel free to check that out. Also check out our interviews with Anthony Castrovince, Mark Simon 4 times, Chris Rose, Jeff Passan, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, Foolish Bailey, among others. And feel free to follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.